Hi, everybody. I'm Richard Sher. Welcome to Square Off, and today a one-on-one with, according to the Washington Post, with one of the most recognizable conservative voices in America, a longtime confidant of former Trump cabinet member Dr. Ben Carson, and a close friend of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. What can I say, Armstrong? It is fabulous to see you, and thank you so much, because we have a lot of conservatives and Republicans who watch this program.
Well, listen, I always look forward to speaking with you, and I'm glad you're still in the game and giving people information and guests and conversations that they will probably find no place else in the Baltimore area. So it's a pleasure.
Well, we are so happy to see you, and what a resume. Let me just educate a few of our viewers. You're a TV host, you're an author, you're a nationally syndicated columnist, you're a political activist, entrepreneur, owner of, what is it 7 TV stations?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
7 TV stations, and who, along with David D. Smith, who is the Sinclair Broadcasting Group's president and CEO, he is a principal owner of the Baltimore Sun. And we'll talk about the Sun a little bit later. First time ever, Armstrong, a former US president, is convicted of felony, 34 guilty verdicts. The jury finding Donald Trump guilty in a scheme to illegally influence the 2016 election through a hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels. What is your reaction when you saw the guilty 34 times?
There's one thing that I respect is our jury system. The issue is that Mr. Trump faced his charges brought on by the Mr. Alvin Braggs and Michael Cohen, who was Mr. Trump's lawyer for 9 years, who has become his bitter enemy now, and Stormy Daniels, who I believe Mr. Trump certainly had an affair with, said some of the most damaging things about him. And because he did not and chose not to testify on his behalf, and I think it was wise that he did so, I mean, the defense did not call a lot of witnesses. And given the judge's instructions and the fact that the juror has to follow the judge's instructions, I was not surprised at the verdict, even though it was unanimous and quick, that he was found guilty on all 34 counts. But I think the most important lesson here, Richard, is that, is justice blind? No. Is justice fair? No. Is justice unequal? No. But the lesson here is in life is when we take our natural gifts that God has given us and what we decide to sow with those gifts, we should also reap. And sometimes it can reap destruction. Donald Trump made the choice to hire Michael Cohen and make him his lawyer. I'm sure Donald Trump did not realize during the court proceedings that Michael Cohen was a pathological liar. I think he knew exactly what Stormy Daniels was, that he had an affair with right after she gave birth to their son, Barron. And so Donald Trump, when it's all said and done, like of all of us, must face the consequences of our choices.
You did a video in front of a church, which I watched with my wife, Annabelle. It's really an excellent piece. But in that, you said that Donald Trump never, ever, ever takes blame for anything. And so he knew what he was doing, and he's facing the consequences. How do you, Armstrong, feel that these convictions will affect the 2024 presidential election?
Well, it's not about how I feel it will impact it. It does not stop Mr. Trump from running for the president. And if he were to win, it will not stop him from being seated. I don't think that in July, the judge is going to try to sentence him to jail time are basically probation. And Donald Trump is unlike anyone we've ever seen in the history of our country. I don't know anybody where a judge and a jury holds your fate in their hand that you show no kind of humility, remorse, or any kind of respect for the system, the court system. And so the comments and his words of war against the judge and others in that courtroom obviously was going to come back to bite him. It's not an example I would say that anybody should want to follow if you're being charged and you want some mercy in the court, either from a decision by the judge or by the jury. And so, Donald Trump is unusual. It's not going to slow him down. And it does appear that he has gone up in terms of his popularity, and he's slightly gone up ahead of Biden even more since the verdict. I think people believe that they're so desperate in their way of life. They've lost a lot of their pocketbook issues. They don't like what's happening on the foreign front. They certainly did not like the continued border crisis, even though Mr. Biden finally decided to issue an executive order. People vote for different reasons. And you know what? Whether people decide to vote for Trump or Biden, that is what our freedom is about. It's the freedom of choice. I respect whatever decision people make, as long as people go out and vote. Because to me, if you don't go out and vote, then you should have no say so or any concern in the outcome.
In a just released ABC News Ipsos poll, 50% support the guilty verdict, and they call on Trump to end his campaign. 27% say Trump should continue his campaign. 23% of those, almost a third, said, or quarter rather, said that they do not know what decision they would make in terms of Trump running, staying on the Republican ballot. But I wanted to ask you about well, first of all, Donald Trump says that he doesn't think he'll get any jail time because the public will not stand for it. His supporters will not stand for it. And what are your thoughts about the sentencing, if there would be a sentencing, how much time he might get?
He should not get any time.
Right.
It's a low-tier felony charge, and rare if does anyone and get jail time as a result. And then when you think about what's going on with the president's son, Hunter Biden, who's definitely not an elected appointed official, his charges are far more egregious than Mr. Trump on the firearm, where he literally checked that box saying he had no prior drug charges, knowing he was lying on the form. And so, and I actually also believe that if his son, Hunter Biden, is convicted, there's a possibility after the election that Mr. Biden would pardon him. So, people don't believe that justice is fair. There's a one standard for Donald Trump and there's another standard for Hunter Biden. And sometimes when we talk about Donald Trump, sometimes I get criticized for this in my editorials. Why do we always say, what about someone else? Well, this is what the American people look at. This is what they care about. I do think that in all that we do, prosecutions, courtrooms, judges should be consistent. They should be fair, because you don't ever want to lose the trust of the American people in the justice system. You just don't.
Well, Armstrong Williams, it is great. So we're excited to have you here on Squirrel, but we do have a voice of the show. We have 4 sponsors, and Howard, the voice of Squirrel, Howard Mallison, I'm giving you an opportunity, Armstrong, to see one of the really greats of our business. Howard, take it away.
Thank you, Richard. Pappas restaurants and sports bars are voted the best crab cake year after year by readers' polls, and it's Oprah's favorite. 4 locations with the newest in Bel Air. And Leading Edge Auto Body and Mechanical Repair want you to know that the insurance companies cannot tell you where to take your car. Call Leading Edge at 410-433-0433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in the heart of Mount Washington. And our good friend, attorney Barry Glazer, who will help you get the compensation that you're entitled. Barry has a doctor and nurse on staff. So for personal injury, medical malpractice, or nursing home neglect, give Barry a call at 410-547-8568. And your friendly neighborhood Double T Diners, from Route 40 West to Annapolis and everywhere in between. The Double T Diners are the area's #1 choice for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Double T, totally terrific. Back to you, Richard.
Back to Squirrel exclusive with Armstrong Williams. And I'm like excited because we respect you and really enjoy your writings and many of your opinions. And as you know, Armstrong, emerging as a top voter concern in the 2024 presidential race is the migrant crisis at the southern border. We've seen some very sad video from there. Earlier this week, President Biden issued an order which intends to shut down the U.S.-Mexican border when 2,500 migrants cross in one single day. Biden declaring, quote, "If an individual chooses not to use our legal pathways, they will not be allowed to stay in the United States." Your commentary or thoughts on the migrant crisis at the border?
Should have happened long ago. It is an issue that is universal across the board among people of every walk of life in this country, that we're allowing these migrants to cross our borders, millions, disrupting services, and that should be reserved for Americans first, from New York to Texas to Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., providing homes for them, providing cell phones for them, paying them $1,000 a month. And God knows how many others have come through who are terrorists and gang members. We look at situations now where gang members are involved with crimes throughout our major cities in this country. And why Mr. Biden did not assign that executive order, some people are going to believe that it's close to an election year and it's like a noose hanging around his neck and he just had to do something. And we've seen the tea leaves where the Democratic Party are very mixed on Mr. Biden signing this executive order. But sometimes we must stand up on principle and do what's in the best interest of the long term for the American people. And some people believe that America is even more vulnerable now than we were during 9/11, with what we have no idea who's in this country, what their intentions are, and who will exploit it.
Well, Biden's order has met with backlash, as you said, Armstrong, mostly from progressive Democrats and immigration advocates, some drawing similarities between Biden's border rule and what former President Trump tried to do while he was in office. You agree with that?
Well, it's basically the same. They're just calling it something different because his executive order takes place immediately and it brings a screeching halt to people coming in based on asylum seekers. That is absolutely no more. So you absolutely. But the funny thing about it is that these progressives are only a small fraction of this country. The majority of Americans overwhelmingly felt Mr. Biden not only did the right thing, and as I said earlier, it should have been done long ago. You just cannot lead and guide based on a fraction of your party. You got to base it on principle. You got to base it on what is in the best interest of the American people. And you find it very difficult to find any American of sound mind that would disagree that we've had enough migrants in this country for right now. And not only should it come to a halt, but there probably should be a moratorium on it for right now until we can figure out who we have in this country and who we need to get out of this country that may threaten our way of life.
How many millions have entered this country and in Texas, and they were sent to New York and sent there and here and there? What would you suggest that it be halted altogether?
Yes.
Now until it's worked out? When you see the video, it's heartbreaking to see these children being passed over barbed wire fences, and it's heartbreaking.
Not only that, sexually trafficking, molested, used as mules, used to bring fentanyl, the dangerous drug, into this country. I mean, the cartel is exploiting this. I mean, to most people, it's just common sense.
Who do you think is going to win that election if it's Biden versus Trump, and it appears that that's what's going to happen?
You know, that's the great thing about all the trials that we've had in this country so far, whether it's not involving the president's son or the former president. The most important juror of all gets to vote on November 5th. That is the American people. The American people should know that now that a sleeping giant has finally been awake. I think Americans are more educated and more knowledgeable and more understanding of what the issues are, even though we don't always give them credit. I think they will go out and vote for what is in the best interest of America, not necessarily themselves, but the best interest of America. I know Mr. Biden stated shortly after the Trump verdict that Donald Trump was a threat to democracy. Well, there are many people who also feel that Mr. Biden and his policies are a threat to democracy. The only way you can make that decision and decide what is in the best interest for America is for you to go as a juror, as a citizen on November 5th and vote and make your vote heard.
Now, before we move on, and I'd like to discuss the Baltimore Sun, but not right this second. I want to give our viewers who are unfamiliar with you a look at who you are. What are some of the publications? I know you're one of 10 children, right? Is that correct? Sir?
Yeah. Yes.
What was that like? Well, I know you grew up on a farm, South Carolina. Is that correct?
Best days of my life. Had mother and father. They're living. My brothers, I was naive. I did not know about this treacherous world. We were protected. We were naive. And our parents raised us in a bubble, early to rise, early to bed, 200-acre farm with cattle and swine and small grain and vegetable gardens, close to nature, because the best culture my family and I ever had growing up was agriculture, and it still remains that way today.
And farming was something that you loved, and you attached that to the way people live, how important the farming is and growing the products, and you just really loved it. You worked hard at it. How did you get from there to here?
Well, my father was a very ambitious and educated man, and he realized that farming life could not sustain all 10 of his children. So I was the first of that generation to go to college, and my father made it possible through the farm and the tobacco crops that he paid for my college education so I could come to Washington. And Strom Thurmond was my mentor to find better opportunities for my brothers and my sisters, because he realized the farming was just a matter of time, would become something totally different. You know, it's the soil to the soul. Farming is America's identity. We grew our crop. We were healthy. We knew the meat that we were putting in our bodies. My mother and the eggs, the swine that we killed, the plants that we grew without the pesticides and the herbicides, which is causing great health challenges for people today and also killing them. There's so much processed food that is going on with American crops today. And so many Americans need to get back to farming, because farming is our identity. I learned my discipline. I learned sacrifice. I learned love of God. I learned love of my parents. I learned how to be a neighbor. I learned the importance of giving back. I learned the importance of working together as a team. And I learned the importance of the 4 seasons. Every 4 seasons brings something totally different, and you got to be prepared for all the seasons in life. And that continues with me today.
Well, I want to ask you one more question before we get on to another topic. And that is, how did you get from there to here? And what are some of the programs that our viewers can see on television? I know you have is it the Armstrong Williams show or the one you have on Channel 45? Which one is that?
They all bear my name. Well, you know, every Friday morning at about 6:15 a.m. I'm live on WBFL Fox 45 with commentary. Then again on Monday around 6:45 a.m. I'm live. And then my national television shows air on WBFF and the CW affiliate on the weekends. And if you want to know what the schedule is and where you can watch it, all you need to do is go to www.armstrongwilliams.com, and it will give you all the listings, all the shows, all the stations where you can watch it. And also my column is syndicated by Creative Syndicate. You can also find the column also on the website, because we post all the columns after they are published.
Well, they're excellent, whether one agrees or doesn't agree. You are recognized, as I said at the beginning of the square off, maybe the #1 conservative voice in America. How much responsibility does that place on you personally?
Richard, listen, I'm a human being like everybody else who's flawed and continuously working on myself. I do believe that there's a God. I do believe that there were 10 commandments and not 10 suggestions. And I do find that the hardest work I do 24 hours a day is working on myself, working on my morality, working on my relationships with people, working on relationships with my employees and the businesses that we own. And I find that the harder I work on myself, the better life becomes for me and for those that are around me. So I'm just thankful that my parents instilled in me a faith and a value system and something much deeper than materialism and wealth. It's my faith that sustains me. It's when I wake up in the morning, I know that I can sleep well at night because I did well, I did right by my fellow man, I did right by myself. And even though I fall short, my goal every day is to strive to be a better human being. And I think if everybody were to work on themselves a little harder, I think the world will automatically improve around us.
Because it is kind of a chaotic world right now, you have to admit. Unbelievable. But let's get to the Baltimore Sun. You guys, you and David Smith are now the owners, the principals of the Baltimore Sun. What changes have been made, or do you expect will be made to the paper? Because there are readers of the Sun who are fearful that the paper is going to become a totally conservative publication.
You know what? I still try to figure out these labels. What is conservative and all these other labels? First of all, David Smith is one of the most respectful people I've ever met. He listens, and he wants what's best for what our coin, the realm of our coin is trust. Newspaper serves as a chronicle, Richard, of events, providing future generations with when they into the past. And so what we cover are significant events, social changes and cultural shifts. Our editorial and opinion pieces influence readers' perspectives on political, social, and economic issues. And you can't do that unless you have a range of voices, not because they're liberal, not because they're conservative. It's right. Because they're voices that represent communities, that represents where people are in their values and they are in their virtues. Our investigative journalists uncovers truths that can lead to public outcry and policy changes. That's what media needs to be about. Newspapers must highlight richer cultural trends, art, literature, and entertainment. We have to continue to shape the cultural landscape, and we have to provide a platform for diverse voices and cultural narratives, promoting cultural understanding and appreciation. That's what we do. We don't come to the paper saying left or right. We come to the paper saying trust, factual. It doesn't matter whether there's a piece one day praising Joe Biden or piece the next day criticizing Donald Trump. We're not here to be protective of any political party or any policy. Our job is the voice of the people, to provide a platform for discussion on justice, equality, human rights, politics, how business influence economic behavior by providing that information on markets, investments, and economic policies. Newspaper must contribute, Richard, to the evolution and preservation of language. I mean, just think about it. We showcase what I would consider to be these linguistic trends, innovations, and we have to maintain a standard of journalistic integrity and communication, setting benchmarks for accuracy, and clarity. And I think, and this is my opinion, I've heard it since we've taken over the paper, that the paper is better, it's more informative, it has more diverse voices, it's closer to what the community wants. We cover the State House, we cover the mayor, we cover the members of Congress in Washington, D.C. We cover what's going on in the schools. We cover things that affect justice and crime, things that people care about that impact their lives every day. And I must tell you, I don't know if I've ever been more busier and more involved in any media property I've ever owned in my life. But it was with such a joy because of the people that we work with, whether it's Trisha, whether it's Triv, whether it's Jay, whether it's Sam, whether it's Chris. We just have a great group of people that we work with. And we don't go to the paper saying, cater to one perspective or another. We go to the paper saying, these are the voices that should be on these pages. These are the voices that people want to hear. And the kind of feedback we get from readers, I mean, it is overwhelming, the kind of feedback that we get. Because if you notice, with every column that I publish on Sunday in the owner's box, or whether I publish it on Wednesday, it always has my email where people can communicate with me directly, because I want to hear their perspective. I want to hear their challenges. And sometimes they criticize me harshly, but it makes me think, because I realize we don't have all the answers, but in hearing dissenting voices and hearing constructive criticism, it can only make you better.
Your writing is absolutely excellent. It's like you're speaking to us now. You're speaking to us in your column. There's no chance that you're going to become just an online paper, is there?
Oh, no, I believe in the daily print. This is a debate that I have with my business partner. And he has said to me point blank, well, if you can make it work, the print is not going anywhere. So that's one of our challenges, is to show how print media can work, not just with the Baltimore Sun and Baltimore. We've tasked ourselves with putting together a mechanism, showing if you give people what they want to read, what they care about, whether it's in politics, whether it's in entertainment, whether it's in sports, if you give people what they want, and they're willing to buy it, but they've got to buy something that they enjoy, that makes sense to them. I actually think that David and I have an opportunity set in a place to save print media and newspapers across the country, because the Baltimore Sun, founded in 1837, and us being the caretaker, we have an opportunity to not only leave our blueprint with the Baltimore Sun, but impact the newspaper industry all across America.
That's great. How about a quick lightning round where I'll just mention a topic and you give me a sentence or two? You want to do that?
Sure.
I don't think you'll do too badly. I think you'll do pretty well. All right. The Armstrong Williams lightning round. Here we go. The end of Roe versus Wade.
It's back to the states. I think both people agree across the board. It's a woman's choice in consultation with the man in her life, whether it's her husband or boyfriend or whatever. And I think most Americans agree with that, that's a decision that should be dealt with the states. And I think the Supreme Court made the right decision.
Excellent. Efforts to suppress Black voters.
That's more propaganda. And I think in the South Carolina case, where the Supreme Court sided with the state of South Carolina, that's more of the past than the present. But people like to push that narrative because it places people in fear, make them think that we're still living during the days of dangerous segregation, and that is far from the truth.
Donald Trump's vice presidential choices.
Well,
how about you?
I hope it's a man with high moral standards and moral clarity, and someone that he will really listen to and that he respects.
Do you know Donald Trump pretty well?
I've known him for about 20 years.
That's it? Well, that's great. A divided Congress. Some say dysfunctional Congress, with the Republicans, the Democrats, the conservatives, the leftists. What is going on in that Congress that is so chaotic?
I think Speaker Mike Johnson has shown us the way where Democrats are willing to cross the aisle to shut down voices like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others that would like to oust another Speaker of the House. I think we're seeing something that we've never seen before. I know we like to talk about the division, the conflict, the rhetoric, but what we don't talk about enough is how we're not talking about having the Speaker ousted, and how Democrats have come together with Republicans to show leadership, to show civility, and how they can work together. And we should look at what the majority of these Democrats and Republicans are doing, and not these isolated voices on the left and the right that seems to make all the headlines.
Give us a sentence on Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Bomb thrower.
What'd you say?
A bomb thrower, a nuclear bomb thrower at that. She likes the limelight, and they keep feeding her. As long as the media gives her a platform, she will take full advantage of it. But she's not always wrong. Every now and then, she does make some salient points. I'll give her credit for that.
All right. Finally, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce.
I'm the last person to ask about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. I've not followed that. If you ask me about who's going to win the French Open, or maybe the U.S. Open or Wimbledon, I can help you in the department of tennis, something like that, but not in terms of music. Music has never been anything for me except gospel music and Shirley Caesar. I don't really listen to much anything else. Or classical, I may listen to Tchaikovsky or Beethoven, but my music is a little different.
Gospel music. I love gospel music. I always had. I started my career at WBMD in Baltimore, and we had all religious shows and all gospel music and country music and loved it. Now, I just want you to know, Armstrong, what a delight it has been to chat with you, but not long enough. And Square Off is now in our 41st year in the Baltimore market. We have 2 conservatives, 2 liberals on each program, men, women, white, black, Asian, whatever we do. 4 people arguing about the hot topics of the day. And we're online now at squareoff.net. Now, I want to ask you if you would please consider coming back on Square Off, just chatting with me maybe a few times a year. Would you do that?
I will consider it. You know, I have great respect for you. That's why I'm here.
Well, before we go, I must ask you, how's our friend Dr. Ben Carson? How's he doing? And
Dr. Carson is so blessed. He's so deep in his faith. He's so deep with American, with bringing back the Boy Scouts and bringing back virtue and civility and civics to this country. I've never known him to be in a better place. He has a new book out now about the perilous fight that's in bookstores now, and it's never been better for Dr. Carson.
Well, is there anything else that you'd like to say before you leave us for your first but not last appearance on Square Off?
You know, if everybody agrees that somebody is not necessary, we should want dissenting voices. We should not be angry by those voices, because if our truth is as strong as we think that it is, then we should stand in it and not feel fearful and insecurity to shut down other voices. I think it's so wonderful that you and I can have a conversation. It's not about that we agree, it's that we're having a conversation where people are getting information they've not had before. It's so important that we're able to talk to each other on all sides of the aisle and not silence any voice. That's what continues the greatness of America and separates it from any other place on this planet.
But there is a lot of anger in this country, right?
But we can change that by example. Listen, whether Donald Trump or Joe Biden win or lose on November 5th, America will go on. America will still be strong, because the best of America are ordinary people. Everyday people is what make America great, not our political class. Ordinary people.
Armstrong Williams, bless you, man. It's great to have you with us. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you enjoyed Armstrong, and we'll look for him sometime in the fairly near future. Thank you so much for your time. Give our best to David D. Smith, who's like the emperor of media here in this country. So thanks again, Armstrong.
Thank you. Just
remember,
we'll
see you next time. Once again, what'd you say?
Just remember, ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
That's right. See you next time when once again we square off. Bye, Armstrong.
Bye, Richard.